In February 2011, we had our first historic joint house in its year on Sound Money. Senator Cromer was one of the few who came to the Sound Money event, and Dr. Bud Wishbone and several others were there. So Senator Cromer, thanks for being there.
Still behind you on that.
And I think Mr. Bill Burbridge is happy that there's some affiliation with Rick Perry, since they talked about the Ponzi scheme from time to time.
Yeah.
Perry County. I think we need to recognize Tommy Plonk, Executive Committee with the Jackson County GOP, who represents us at the state. Former County Councilman David James, we get a lot of advice from him. In terms of this ordinance that so many of you like, the maintenance ordinance. We asked his advice last time, his perspective. And that's a whole different can of worms we won't go into now. Marcia, former county councilman, and I say that in generic, and works with Beth at the Lisbon County as a deputy clerk of court, right?
I am.
And she's very familiar with a lot of these issues. And the most honorable Bill West, the Bill West Award. Bill's here with us in spirit, now he's here in real life. Whatever real life. And probably the most important part of Bill is his wife, Ann, over here. Make sure. And let's not forget Bill Black, who's running for Congress again. Bill, you want to say anything?
Thank you.
David Diamond, whose dad was always here, John Diamond. David started this group over 23 years ago. 24 years ago now. Keep me straight, David. And we have a professional photographer with us, Mickey Garrison. Mickey, thanks for being here today.
Who's a close personal friend of Santa Claus.
Well, Santa Claus, right. And he sings wonderfully. But now he charges, so we can't afford it.
Free, right?
Ross Snell, who's a solid Republican, who's always at many of these events. Terry Starkey is third vice chair of Lexington County Republican Party. Corey Norris, the troublemaker in the state of South Carolina. Corey's the spice of the party, spice of the meal.
He carries around all the fuses.
Yeah, well, and he's
So you carry the fuses around, Corey.
yeah, he's over here out of line of sight. And notice, say something to America there, Corey. They're Americans watching. Corey Norris, one of the second most influential patriot in the state of South Carolina. Bill Burbridge back here in the corner trying to hide, retired Eastern Airlines pilot and constant troublemaker in the Wall Street Journal. And we have the Riverwalk poet, Paul Lamb, with us. Al Denton. Thanks to all of you for being here this morning. And Senator Cromer, thank you. Come back.
Enjoy.
I think you're right. You'll be introduced by Senator Cromer over the next few months. Mr. Geddings, you want to say anything about your whiskey stills? Eddie McCain had an idea of having another guest come up here. Eddie, you want to?
I wanted to ask Mr. Cromer, what relation are you to Lewis Cromer?
Oh, no relation to Lewis Cromer. No, I'm sure we down the line
He's a
somewhere.
fine individual. I used to know him well.
Yes, sir. His
Been in
son,
court with him a number of times.
you know, Lewis ran for the Senate 35, 40 years ago.
Is he still with us?
He is, yeah. He's still practicing
I haven't
attorney.
seen him in years.
His son is Bubba Cromer. You know, he was an independent, the
Yeah.
only independent in the House for a while, and he's now the reading clerk of the House. And when we go over there, we say, "Cuz, how you doing?" You know, so, and one Andre Bauer gave me a little sticker. He was a button collector. A little sticker said Cromer for Senate. And I said, "Where did you find that?" He said, "Lewis Cromer ran." This was back when Andre was in the Senate. He said he ran for the Senate 35 years ago. And when I walked in for the joint assembly, and Bubba looked down and saw that sticker, he immediately picked up his cell phone, called his dad, Lewis. So.
Well, I think the reason he's asking this, Mr. Geddings was telling us his story of his book one day. He's 1980, he's got his picture in it. And he was saying, well, these characters are fictitious, but they're based on real people.
Yeah.
And he told me he's been in court. How many times have you been in court? 3 times?
3 times I was in court with that book.
And I
Various.
think- Was this judge you're talking about, was this Cromer? Who was?
No, this was in Sumter County. Rusty Weinberg, you folks don't know Mr. Weinberg, he was the Lewis Cromer.
Gotcha.
In fact, Cromer represented him when the government tried to put him in jail.
So are you gonna sing
A
again?
little multi-million-dollar deal down there that went through, and Rusty was involved in it. They tried to put him in jail, and Lewis Cromer got him out. That's another story. What were we gonna talk about? Whiskey?
Whiskey.
Everybody loves whiskey.
I think I was telling you a little while ago, yesterday I was at the car wash in Lexington. I was sitting in a little waiting room, these two elderly ladies walked in, and they noticed I was reading a magazine. And one of the ladies said, I think you'll find this book here more interesting than that magazine you're reading. So I reached over and I took her book. And the lady that gave me the book was the aunt of the lady next to her, was the niece of the lady next to her, who was 93 years old. She's 93 years old, and she wrote this book about her life. She grew up in Lexington County, graduated from Gilbert High School, and I started thumbing through the book, and it had hundreds of pictures in it. And one of the pictures was a liquor still. And I looked at this, you got a liquor still in here. And she began to tell me the story about her daddy had a liquor still. And she explained to me the different types of liquor, you know, that it took like 2 years for the liquor to turn brown or something like that, where it was good sipping liquor, but that liquor was used for medicinal reasons, to pour on cuts and scrapes. And
Well, since we got a minute, and I'm a historian, and I have written along the lines that he's talking about, let me just enlighten you on the fact that whiskey has been around ever since man has been around, and he found out things would ferment. And they like the taste of it. So, but in the beginning in the United States, the alcohol has been very important, and all the doctors, if they didn't have access to alcohol, most of the doctors, as I write about them, I find that they had liquor stills, and they would will them to their sons and to different people. But they did it because it was necessary and they needed it. They had to have alcohol. When the Confederate States of America, they set up an operation here in Columbia and put a man in charge of it. You got any idea how much alcohol they needed for the medicinal purposes in the armies? They had everything they needed in those times. You've heard these stories about them operating on people with no anesthesia and nothing to kill the pain and all that. If they had alcohol, they'd get him drunk. They'd get him so drunk he'd pass out. Sometimes that was the only thing they had. And then they'd cut his leg off or whatever needed to be done. But it took a lot of alcohol, and of course for washing and cleaning and keeping instruments clean and all that. They had just got to where they understood that these things needed to be done and the need for it.
I'll be right back.
I wish you would. I'll talk to you.
Okay.
That's,
Don't go away.
I always talk to
Behind my
you.
shop for you.
But my point being that alcohol has been here, and up to about the 1930s, when our government here in the United States decided that they would legislate morals and everything else for you, and passed the Prohibition Act, and that was simply, they understood that everybody out there was making whiskey and drinking it, and they couldn't collect taxes on it. So our good politicians got together up at the State House and passed a law. Very like many of the laws that you gentlemen pass up there. They passed it, but they couldn't enforce it. And therein was the folly of the whole thing. The bootleggers out here, the individuals, went on making it and just dodged the few agents that they had to try to enforce it. And this is a lot what the book that I wrote that he's referring to is about, is just average people who were starving to death and got into the moonshine whiskey business or the illegal whiskey business because they found out they could sell it and supply their family with some of the needs that they had with this product. But they found a way to survive during that bad, very bad economic period. But the government set up dispensaries, and I've often referred to the fact Mr. West's ancestors were, I think, in charge of that dispensary here in Columbia, maybe. I haven't researched that deeply, but they were involved in it because they were reputable people, and did a good job with it, in fact. But it didn't work out because people didn't just quit making it out there in the swamp and come down and buy it from the state. Didn't happen. So eventually they found out that this was they were beating a dead horse there, and they quit with it. But alcohol is very important, still is, and I wish that I could get this book back into print so y'all could read it or get it on the internet or something. We're working on it, and I think you might enjoy it because it's just about average people. I got interested in writing local stories by Mr. J.M. Eliezer from, do any of y'all know who he was? From the Dutch Fork.
Wasn't he a professor at Clemson?
Back many years ago. He was, at one time was the agent for Clemson College, I believe, agricultural agent. But he lived in the Dutch Fork, grew up there, and when he was old, he wrote a book called Dutch Fork Farm Boy. And it's still available, about like mine, in most libraries. But it's a very interesting, this story of him growing up in the Dutch Fork and the everyday things that a boy does, and people love that. And I encourage any of you, old or young, write about your life. You'd be surprised how many people would enjoy to hear and see it. I have people write me from all over the world and thank me for writing this book, say I grew up in that time. They may not have lived in Sumter County where I did, but anywhere in the South, you will find that people experience the same things, and they survived by doing whatever they could find to do and make a living for their families.
Mr. Geddings, thank you. Let's give Mr. Geddings a round of applause. Well, you don't have anything else to say today?
I'll pass.
You'll pass, okay. Well, that's the end of our formal presentation today. We can just talk at the table.
Yes, sir.